Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the podcast LBJ's Corner. We've been on a series of transformation and salvation story, and today I have a rare privilege of having a, 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 an amazing personality and a superstar. So I am lucky to have him. You are welcome, Paul Cast.
Thank you so much for having me. That intro is such an incredible intro. I'm already blushing already. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I am not moved by just what you said, but you're welcome. You're welcome. So, we've been on the subject of salvation story and transformation story, and our inspiration is from the Apostle Paul. Coincidentally, your your name. Um, so anywhere he went, Apostle Paul was always sharing his salvation story. That it got to a point that when he appeared before Agrippa, Agrippa had to tell him, Paul, shut up. You almost converted me with your words. So it just get to show the power of personal testimonies of how Jesus has been with us. So going straight into it, could you kindly introduce yourself to everybody?
All right. Where do I start from? My name is Paul Cast. Like you already rightly said, I'm a filmmaker. So mainly my reason for going into film was because I felt the need to actually tell stories that will inspire people and also educate people as well. Then bringing the realities of situation in such a way that people can actually be uplifted and see the world differently. And so that became my driving force into going to films. And so, but beside that, I'm also a businessman as well. I'm also a preacher of the gospel. I wrote a book and it's out there. And the book is about is the title is How to Be a Man in a Prison World. And so let me say that emphatically, without any apology, I am a believer. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. And I carry that on my head everywhere I go, even into rooms where, secular rooms where it doesn't seem to be popular. I do not in any way. Um, I know the gospel is the power of God to salvation, and so that's what I declare with everything I do, and that's filters into every single decision I make as regards the media space, my entertainment business, and whatever it is. The gospel is always the focal point, and that's why whenever I see any of my projects, there's always going to be the element of the gospel in it, and so I am a diehard believer, and that is what um, it is from my submission to Christ that I make all my decisions because whatever He gives me to do per time. So that's who I am in summary.
I am so blessed to have you. I think as a filmmaker, a storyteller, uh, I am so sure your story would be very inspiring, and I am also expecting a lot of professionalism to it. And by the way, I remember you were the producer of the documentary of Pastor Iren, if I am correct.
Yeah, CCI.
I saw
A
it,
billion
and
souls. That's the title.
it- yeah, and it was so mind blowing, and I'm like, my goodness, this guy, that day after I saw it, so when you left, so I was telling Pastor Ezekiel that, my God, so it's this guy that did this, and I'm smiling with him, and he's laughing with me. I'm like, my goodness. Wow, but you're doing a great job. I think I know someone that told me has read the book. Personally, I have not yet. That is because I'm waiting for the autographed version of the book before but someone told me that reading the book was really really beautiful, and I'm like, of course, I don't expect anything less. So well done, sir, and we're happy to have you here. Okay. So we just go straight into it. Tell us about yourself growing up. Let's get to know where you're coming from.
Okay, I did not really have a very easy childhood growing up. I had a bit of questions. I've always been a curious mind. I've always been someone that loved to think for myself. I always loved to ask the question why, and that often always led me into trouble because whenever an adult would tell me something they believe was right, I would always ask them, why should I take it as mine? And so I remember one time a friend of mine, not a friend of mine, an adult was kind of like, I think I went to his house and he locked the door, and then someone came to see him and they said I should go and tell the person that uh, he wasn't around. I just looked at him and said, you want me to lie? Why should I lie? So that's how the man just, humbled himself and then went into the house and then just stayed where he was. So I've always been very curious, and that's what. So, um, I grew up in a very large family. I had my siblings by a lot, right? Several parts of the country as well. Um, and so I always I planned to be. I wanted to be so many things. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be, a dancer. I wanted to also be a I play four instruments. My family, I have a musical family, so we all play instruments, except for my dad. My dad never. He was the odd one out. All of us we either sang or belonged to the choir or we played an instrument. So I played four instruments. My family. My older brother played the keyboard. My older brother played percussion and some others. So we had that environment, but we had a group called Lighthouse Family where we like did a cappellas, went around and ministered at different churches here. Just my family actually doing that. My uncle was an incredible soprano singer. When he sang, the whole place would be quiet, be silent when he sang. So that kind of like gave me a background. I've always been around the church. I was literally born inside the church, literally. Like midwives delivered me in the church. So I was in that environment, but I would say I never knew, I was never exposed to the gospel. In fact, I hated church because I was always tired of church. Church, I spent the whole day in church, and I didn't learn one thing about it. I didn't know who I was in Christ. I didn't know nothing about God. So, but I only went to church as a chore, as a core. Something I would just go to and then meet my friends, meet my just play around and all of that. For some time, because I played the keyboard, I would once I'm done playing the keyboard, I'll just step out and just go out and I can go and watch a movie somewhere in somebody's house. So I didn't really have a lot of friends when I was younger. I almost always was alone, except maybe whenever we are all out and with my friends out. After that, I was always on my own. I always had my own world, like in my own head. I would think deeply into what's the world really about, who made God, those weird questions like that. And so those things drove me to want to learn, learn about the world. And it was my dramatic curiosity that, in a way, led me to search more, to be curious. But even at that, I actually didn't have a good teacher around to teach me, and so I made a lot of mistakes. Growing up, but I was always the kind of person that if something wasn't available and I saw it was something that made available, I didn't sit down to complain on why it wasn't being done. I would always often step up to the fore and get it done. And so in 2009, that was when I met a friend of mine called Judah. Judah loved God in a way that was very passionate. He wasn't pretentious or phony or trying to look like a Christian outside. He was just a cool guy. He would just dress down, look very cool and everything. But his love for God was palpable. And I was like, I want to love God like that. Normally, I would never watch a preacher preaching on TV. Never. God, never. My brother Victor used to watch TV Jakes and all the great men all the time on TV, but I hated it. I was like, why can't I watch a a movie, watch cartoon or something. When I met Judah, Judah became a pivotal element and force in my life because even without necessarily teaching me per se, I just watched him. And by watching Judah, I was like, I want to be like this guy. He was just 2 years older than I was. And he came and worked with my brother one time. And when he worked with my brother, he would bring books to the shop and just be reading and then be reading and. So I began. I don't know exactly when I made the decision, but I just knew that I began to just love being around Judah to the point where I began also reading, and then we would share, we would talk about different things, and then we read books like Charles Finney's books, Oswald Chambers, Watchman Nee, all those deep, deep books that people don't read now. Um, we would go to a library. So there was a library in Lagos that was actually free for books. So we would actually just sit down there for hours, like from morning till night, we would just be reading books, having big, big books. A.W. Tozer, all those great men. Those became the solid foundation to my my basis of my belief, and we got to a point where it became unshaken. And we said to ourselves, "We're going to die for this gospel." So I can't really say exactly when the moment was when I know I went to altar call several times before. When you have not really heard the gospel, you go every single time. One time the man say, "Oh, sinners in the hands of an angry God," you go. Man, Jesus Christ, you go. And they'll make you scared all the time and you keep on going every single time. I was going every time until by studying and being exposed to the word of grace that I got to understand who I was in Christ and sing, then that became the solid foundation. And we just would spend time. So I would say that association of Judah became the pivotal element to my teenage growing up. And I'm so thankful because God gave me that person. Because if I didn't have that kind of person in my life, I think I would have veered off in the wrong direction. And the kind of person I'm an extreme person. I'm radical in whatever area of whatever I believe is. So I knew if God hadn't brought Judah my way, I would have tilted in the other direction. I would have gone all the way, all the way. But that association actually became the point that actually, in a way, redirected me and limited our passion. And we did a lot of things in school. We went on, we faced persecution in school. Even with the proprietress. I remember one time holding a fellowship, just came out there because she had warned us not to have fellowship in school before. But we were like, are we gonna obey God? So we kept on having fellowship. One time she came and she literally dragged me on the throat like this out of the fellowship ground and said, this boy disobeyed me. You can't stay here. You have to go and call your parents and all of that. So yeah, so that became more of my life growing up. I grew up mostly in Lagos. I was born in Akwa Ibom State, I'm Akwa Ibom, but I grew up mostly in Lagos and spent most of my life there before transiting to a new go and then to Mumbai and all of that. So that's a little bit about my growing up.
Wow, very very interesting. You started answering the next question because it would be at what point did you give your heart to the Lord Jesus, and then like what was the incidents? Of course, I think I was recording with someone, and similar story he told me. For every altar call, he was just coming out until until one day his friend like held him like, "Oga, it is okay," and all that. But at 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 what point did you like told yourself that, okay, now I want to give my heart to the Lord, I want to serve the Lord?
Yeah. Okay. I know in 2009 I was invited to a Christian church. I went there. I was, to give an altar call and I sing it, like I always did all the other times. But I wouldn't really say there was a point per se. But what I would say is that it evolved. Um, it evolved as a result of our association going forward. By um, my by Judah being an influence in my life, just by being around that company, he spoiled up my love for things with God. And he would sometimes he would go on fasting. He would not necessarily tell me per se, but I would just join him. Because I just loved that environment around it. And so he would spend nights praying. So those trainings that we had, I wasn't necessarily sure what I knew I did because I loved the Bible. I didn't necessarily do because I actually wanted either to be in ministry or any of those things at all. But we just felt the need to be to make ourselves available for service. So we were evangelizing, ministering to the sick, and we were praying. We just felt the need to just grow in the love for the Lord. But honestly, there was a time I just sat down and said, you know what, it's time to actually fully give my life to the Lord. But just by being an environment, an atmosphere that inspired or that spurred me to grow consistently, I think it just became an effect, a consequence of that continuous growing in the love for the Lord. That those other things, that some of my desires changed, became a miracle of change desires. My desires changed. I began all of this. So me that I hated listening to sermons. I just loved listening to every sermon. I would watch TD Jakes from morning till night. I get A.W. Tozer. I would get his audio sermons and just listen to them, So it just I think maybe because as we just keep our attention on the Lord, he just by himself alters our desire, and then somehow our love for things begins to be replaced with our love for him. And so the things that actually were the most important, the desire to be known or to be seen or to want fame and fortune, just by itself just fell off. And the desire for him just kept on. So that is just something I knew only the Holy Spirit could have done. And there was nothing I could have ever done to bring myself to that level. But only God could have done that as a result. So to answer the question, I can't really say pinpoint. I know some people would say that at a particular point you had stood somewhere, you heard the voice of God, that dramatic account. I actually didn't have that, to be honest. I don't want to fabricate that. You have it. Someone was like, if you don't know a particular point, that means you're not actually born again. I'm like, oh, good luck to you. But but we just wanted to just constantly support ourselves to grow. It's kind of so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Um, a lot of people really think that serving the Lord or coming to the Lord would have to be dramatic, an angel came and all of that. Because as I'm documenting this, I'm getting a lot of perspective to how God can just win a soul for himself using people, using occasions. All of those things is just to justify what we think is the right perspective to things. But anyway, moving on. How has been the journey for you as a Christian? If I remember so well, from 2009, so that should be 14 years thereabout. How has been the journey for you? Like, how would you summarize the journey?
But it's been a rigmarole. It's been ups and downs. It's been different experiences. But I would say I've actually grown in courage, in boldness, because some of the things God has told me to do personally were things that if you had told me years ago, I would never have done, ever done it. Because I think one of the things God had to work on was my level of boldness. Because I used to be a very timid child, very timid child, because I mostly was talked down on. I had lots of insecurities about myself as a young person growing up. So there was a need for me to work on that, and that was going to be a very big hindrance to doing certain things. Because things, if you really can't have confidence in who you are, God has given you what He has given to you, you will not take certain steps. And some things He will tell you to do, you feel like it's just for those people to do, and they're not people like you. And with having so much self-doubt growing up, that from a lot of things that happened in the past, that was something that God had to work on very hard. And so it's not been an easy journey, to be honest, because I've had to say no to things that I've said yes to before. Like, let me give you an example. In 2020, I was given an offer, the biggest offer I've had in my career as a filmmaker. But the ideas I was asked to popularize was contrary to my belief, my standpoint in the faith. And there was a need for me to stand for what I believed. And so, in doing so, that made me to lose what would have been the biggest offer in my life. But do I regret it? Of course not. I don't regret taking that step because at the point when you see God for who He is, you see that every other thing, nothing else matters, nothing else compares. When you have had an experience with who He is, all of a sudden everything else falls. It falls and it becomes almost nothing immaterial compared to that. So, even in school, in secondary school, when I was I remember when I was doing my WAEC, while I was doing my WAEC, the teacher actually came to class and they said he gave the answer to all the questions and asked us to copy the answers. We were doing titration chemistry. That's mixing acid with base. And so I was like, this is wrong. So everybody was copying it. I just did that. I just said, I'm not going to copy this answer. They're calling me the answer. I blocked my ears, made myself to not hear at all. And the man now came, and then when he looked at all, we just patting at the back and like, good job. He came to me, and he saw that my answer was different from whatever was before. I can't forget that because I know when he saw that, he slapped the slap he gave me was hot. I can still feel the effect now in my back of my head. He gave me a hot slap. He said, "This stupid boy, you are going to fail this exam." What should I do? You are going to fail. I said, "Sir, this is my easy answer. I got my board. I can't be copying what's on the board." He slapped me, gave me a hot slap. And he said, "You're going to fail." And truly I failed. I actually failed the exam, to be honest. In fact, I had three credits. C6, C5, and C5 in English and biology. So I was like, you know what, maybe school is not for me. So for 3 years, I just didn't want to do school. I got into quite late, So it took, at the point, because all my mates had, they had gone out, they had advanced. Mind you, I had gotten first, I'd been taken first in my JSS, from JSS 1 to JSS 2. I was coming first. But somehow in that SS3, I don't know, I just performed roughly and badly, I don't know why. But so during my Y, it was horrible. I had F9 and everything. And so even in the English exam we took, they're calling out all the answers. I refused to respond to them. I just kept on blocking my ears. So I don't want to just write the post in my heart. And that happened. So, but 3 years later, God help me, I got to Covenant University. So I guess God saved the best for the last. The point is that people often think that because you're a believer, it's not going to cost you something. It's going to cost you whether God gave me that school or not. It didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that it was the right thing to do, and we should stick to it. But when Paul says he said that they that will stand for righteousness shall suffer persecution. So that's one thing I believe. A lot of us don't get to learn or be taught that being a believer does not alleviate you from persecution, but it makes you a target for pinpoint persecution. So it's not been an easy ride, but it's been challenging, but it's been a good challenge because it has built my faith. With every single issue or challenge I get to face, I get to grow. Sometimes I don't do so well, but I'm able to get back on my feet again. I'm not ever give up in remembering what God's word says. The Bible says, this is the victory that will make the world, even our faith. I've taken that word literally. What that means is that whatever circumstance or whatever situation, whether it's the defeat is from the world or from me personally, I must keep my faith alive. I must constantly remind myself what God's word says. And literally, that word by itself, literally, is what jacks me back on my faith to keep on going and realize God. So that's been my journey. It's been a rigmarole, but it's been me still hanging on to God's word, constantly growing my confidence in God's word.
Very powerful, very very powerful. I was having a conversation with someone a few days ago, and the person is so obsessed with, God would answer my prayers. I know if I pray, God so I laughed. So when I laughed, I said, I was once like you. I know, I understand the language you're speaking. He's like, no, I'm insulting his spirituality. I said, no, I'm not insulting your spirituality. But when when the going gets tough, you realize that. I think I had similar story. Wrote my WAEC 2009, and WAEC didn't release the result. I was the head boy of my school. In fact, I got admission to study medicine and surgery, and then WAEC didn't release my result. Just as you said, I became angry too. I said, I'm not going to school, and all of those things that that come with that age. But I love the fact that God allowed you to fail. I know people will come for me for saying this, but for sure, that is what makes this story even more amazing to say that uh, God does not exist to meet our needs; rather, we exist to meet His needs. So, so when I see people, God must answer me today. He's not obligated to answer you. So very, very powerful. Yeah. Um, from the beginning, you mentioned that you're not ashamed to be called a child of God, which absolutely that just like it blew my mind at that point. So if I would ask you in 2 to 3 sentences, who is Jesus to you?
He's Lord. What else can he be? I mean, seriously, what else can he be? He's Lord. He's the commander in chief. He says the word and he do it. You know, yeah, people can say he's a lover and all of that. Yeah, I recognize his friendship. They say he's my lover, he's my darling, but fundamentally he's the Lord. He calls the shots. He determines what we do. So he's my Lord, and my Savior. That's who he is, and I can't think of anything else that can be, because that the notion of that gives me consciousness that it's not my mate I'm playing. It's not someone I'm just. But when I call him my lover and all those wonderful things, it makes it seem like in a way it's just we're the same level at par. But the knowledge of him as being my Lord means that there's someone I respond to, there's one I'm submitting to. And so whenever I want to take a step that goes contrary to what the commander in chief wanted, he just simply calls it back to what I. So it's a conscience that I have in my head that I serve an audience of one. And so fundamentally it's my Lord. That's what I would say. And it's what I'm told in sentences.
I love this because immediately you just said that it just clicked, like it resonated with me perfectly. When I ask this question, people say, oh, he's my everything, but then I think it is with the personal revelation of him that you have. I always tell people that if God doesn't do anything for me again in this life, I am satisfied, because I understand that this person I am dealing with, for me to be alive for the next second, is that he has signed it. He's Lord. He is Lord, and that is who he is. So when I see, all those people trying to, explain the love dimension, he's a lover, just as you rightly said, he's not our mate. We're not on the same. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, but there are people that are saying, they and Jesus, they are seated on the same plane and all of that. And when I hear those kinds of things, first of all, I just laugh at maybe ignorance, or maybe, they overhyped, you know, uh gospel and all of that. But if he's not the Lord of all, he's not the Lord at all. So there is no point that we'll get to, and I'm like, no, he speak, I respond. I love totally what you've said.
I was having a session. I was teaching in my own class last week Saturday, and had this Bible boot camp. Young people just came around, they were just teaching about the Bible. And the reality is that when we get to dig into scriptures, like we get into the Bible itself, without bringing in our traditional version as to what the Bible is, but seeing what the Bible says, what it actually says, you will do nothing but surrender completely. Just fall on your knees and just acknowledge the Lord. But when people talk like that, I think because they don't have a good grasp of God's word. Like I've engaged some of them, like for example, a friend of mine, like talk, and she knows about my love, my love, my love. And then when I try to engage her in the word, I see that when it comes to the word, it's very shallow. But the whole sentimental part, there's a God that people have in their head as a sentimental disposition they have towards God. But there is the God that we see in the Bible. That when you actually look from the pages of Scripture, not from what you've been shown, or your sentiment as to how you approach other human beings, how you love somebody else and all that. But when you see from the Scripture to ask what the Bible actually says about who God is, you will just you will fall like a dead man, like John. So a lot of time that actually is either a fault in the teaching or a fault in the studying of the word, basically. And I feel that's what actually prompts those kind of responses as to how they see the worship of Christ actually, to be honest.
I I totally agree with you. So moving forward. I love to hear I love to hear the transformation story. So the next question is, this is who I used to be, but when Jesus came, I have become this. I would always say it that I am not really moved by miracles, because um, someone can receive any kind of miracle and then not recognize Jesus as Lord. But when it comes to transformation stays with you for eternity. So that is why, for me, I'm always moved by transformation stories. So what would you say, this was who you were, and when Jesus came, this is what you've become?
I would say I had no sense of direction at all before I met him. I had no um, like I had no, would I say, no barometer for measuring, or what's that word I'm looking for? Like no compass morally or as regards to life and all of that. And so because I had a very disturbed childhood, like I mentioned, growing up. So um, it's a miracle that we ever get to encounter God in everyday life, to be honest, because I can imagine what my life would have been like if I if I don't encounter God at that moment. So I had no moral compass. I had no direction. I had nothing made sense. I just wanted things for things, but not. But but no sense of fulfillment. As a child, I became a man very early, like from the age of 6, to be honest. So you can tell how I must have been. But when I met the Lord, I would say I actually began living when I met the Lord, or when I got to know about His Word. That's when I literally began living, because all of a sudden it made sense. It made sense, and then whether I had things or didn't have things, or whether people came on the left hand or that, really not really necessarily matter, because the human element is there. But all of a sudden, he just kept feeling that void over and over again. There's at the point when, like, I've had terrible things happen. Like, I lost my brother, I had lost my sister. They both died when I was very young, and these guys were like everything to me. But when they left, when they, I said that I'm going to get them. I actually let them into. So, that void was quickly filled by God's love, was quickly filled by His Word, and so I would say even if I lost everything at this moment, to be honest, to be very honest, it did not shake my faith at all, because it was never because of things that I came to Him in the first place. So He has opened so many doors, because I've had incredible opportunities. This young man is from a small village called Oron. We have this kind of opportunity. I've entered into rooms that I could never dream about. I've had accolades that have been phenomenal. I could not even imagine could ever happen. Like, there are things I can't. If I say it to you, think it's a lie. And all of those things. But to be honest, even if those things had never, even if I had not had 1/10 of it or whatever, I would still be content with God. And even if whether He gives me, of course, when He gives to me, I thank Him for it. I'm grateful. I don't have like an ungrateful bunch, but whether He gives it to me or not, it doesn't, crazy. I mean, crazy, like, man of God, crazy things, like crazy doors have opened to me this year and late last year that anybody I would say would think I'm lying. You mean the city of Abuja? That's phenomenal. So in terms of things and whatever. But even if everything was stripped off, it would still not shake me, because what He has done, by seeing what He has done in Christ, right, through the gospel, what He has done on the cross, when a man like me can, when His book say I was once, was lost, but now I'm found, a wretch like me, and stuff like that. When I see how wretched I was and how I was going to hell, and then seeing the love of Christ, and imagining that He could come in the world and die for someone like me, I mean, that just messes me up. There's nothing in this that could ever compare to that, just to be honest. And I'm not just saying because that's what people say, but it's just a real, honest truth to me, that when I pray, that's what I'm grateful for. I don't ask God for things, and it's been funny, because I don't ever ask God for things, and yet He brings things my way that I never ever asked about, because my heart needs to what is for souls of men. That's all I pray about, souls. Someone asked me once, what do you wish for your birthday? I said, I wish for there to be peace, people to be saved out of hell. That is not who. That is not what I could ever have thought about before. Like, I want to dance, man. I want to, I want to go to the Bahamas. I want to go to the Maldives, that kind of stuff. But honestly speaking, I don't even. Even the Lord appeared now and said, son, look, tell me what you want right now. What I'll put there would be, I want souls to be saved. I want my generation to be saved. I want wherever your name is mentioned, people to come to the kingdom of Christ. I want people to be saved. Not any of those things. Those things, when Paul says, what things were gained to be done and counted but done, for the excellency of Christ. That's actually been my desire, and that could only have been a miracle as a result of what He has done, not what I did to myself, or how I was able to, in a way, give me the miracle of change desires. To be honest, that's actually my testimony, to be honest.
Hmm. I I can only imagine, and I want to quickly say, please remember me in your kingdom. All right. So moving um moving forward, in your journey, when do you feel closest to God and when do you feel farthest from God?
What a question. Just go and look for the hardest question to ask. Well done. Man, when I feel, yeah, I think all the time, I feel farthest all the time, I feel close all the time, to be honest. Because I think when I was, my coming up, and when I felt far from God, right, it was a big deal, if you would try and press. But I learned something that changed my life completely. Um, when it came to those feelings of when you feel close or feel far. And that was the fact that when you are growing, your appetite changes, it becomes enlarged. And so whatever could fuel you at a certain age no longer fuels you anymore. So a child of 10 years old, when he eats what he used to eat at the age of 3, he will still feel hungry again and have need for more food to be satisfied. So the same thing, I see those moments of feeling far from God, or those dry seasons as growing seasons. It actually means that I'm actually growing because, uh, what I would have done before, the time I would have spent praying or studying before, that would have filled me when I was younger in the faith, no longer fills me anymore. And in a way shows that because it's only someone that's healthy that can be hungry. People who are sick will not be hungry. Sick people don't get hungry. They just don't feel hungry. So but the appetite of hunger is actually an indicator of growth and health, right? So sometimes when I feel far from God, I remind myself. Let me just say what I do when I feel far from God. I remind myself what His word says, and what He said was that He will not leave you nor forsake you, and He said He will not leave you until the very end of the age. He will be with you to the very end of the age. So I were able to step out of our feelings into stepping into faith as to what He has said. If He said it and it is true, irrespective of how I feel about Him or feel about where I am in standing with Him, I hold on to His word that says um, He will be with me until the very end of the age. So the world has not ended yet. That means He's still with me. So whether I feel Him or not is immaterial. I can't always make my decisions based on how I feel because my feeling will always be wrong. Uh, it's not always right all the time, and so we have to often let ourselves step out of feelings to stepping into His word. And if that is what His word says, then we count on Him. Let every man be a liar, let God be true. Let every man be a liar. So yeah, of course, I felt driving. I feel driving all the time, even today. But I just simply go back to what His word actually says, which is simply the fact that we have a promise and assurance of His presence. So irrespective, and then I just simply just thank Him for that. You know, He hasn't turned back on His word, and somehow by just confessing the word again to myself of who Christ is to me, all of a sudden faith comes back alive and I'm able to actually have an assurance and confidence of in where I stand with Him, basically. So that's just what I was saying, my response to that would be.
Okay, okay. As we bring this to an end, um I want to believe that at various points in your life, you've had some profound encounters. But um, on your journey, what has given you the mind shift to being a nominal Christian, just that boy from loving Jesus? I mean, what has given you mind shift so far
Mind shift in what way?
in your journey as a believer? I mean, the Christian life. basically?
Okay. That's a very deep question actually, because like I said, it's been a process for me. There's not just one experience that actually made everything all of a sudden change, but it's been a process of constantly, sometimes of course drifting away, then coming back again, and that kind of thing. But you know, um, that journey of studying God's word, being exposed to the environment of the word and of the community of it actually have a healthy community as well. you know, of studying God's word and of course that. But there've been pivotal pinpoints and experiences I've seen that actually I've seen God transform lives, right? Before my very eyes. I've witnessed God do some of the most miraculous things. I've seen incredible healings that's happened to people in my eyes. I've seen even healings to myself and things that were just mind-boggling testimonies. I couldn't have mentioned it all at the moment, but there's no doubt about it. The more you try to doubt, the like I've actually engaged all kinds of people. Like I said, I didn't become a believer because people were preaching to me per se, because I was very curious. I was doubtful, and this one thing I think we should also think about. I heard that the Jews are actually taught to doubt before they get to believe. So in doubting, they're able to question ideas, question the credibility of any kind of any platform, any belief at first, so that when they get to now believe, they really believe to the point of you can't shake their faith, right? And so in engaging atheists and agnostics and the rest, be able to study and then look at just nature without the Bible actually. And we just reach a conclusion. It be foolish to, in fact, it should take more faith to be an atheist than it would take to be a believer. To be honest, you can't see all that has happened and then you just simply say it's not true. So personally, for me, the mind shift happened when I see the incredible things God does. Um, like in lives of people, like I was in Ghana one time, I met this lady. She came around and she was like, she can never ever be a Christian. That she's a Muslim, she can never be a Christian. And so we're trying to like talk to her, but we're like, just don't even try. So that evening we had a crusade, and then it was an open air crusade. While we were there, this lady was just going to see her friend, and had to pass through the crusade ground. As she came there, the power of God knocked her down. She fell on the floor and began to roll. And then we're now hearing some strange voices like, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And then she got delivered that night. And she by herself came to see us by herself the next time. I was like, please, I want to be a Christian. We're like, how now? I'm surprised for her. So we've seen people change. Like I've seen people, broken loose from suicide, from depression cases, lives completely transformed. There's no way you could explain that scientifically and all that. It would just be foolishness to think that this could have been another way. And so if you've seen God go all the way and go the extra mile for you, what can you possibly do that can ever mount up to what he has done? It just the goodness of God makes us repent unto the works. When you see His goodness, it just humbles you. Just on your knees crying like, how can you be this good to a man like me? So so it's been a journey that has been a phenomenal one, because it's changed my life completely, and I'm so thankful that it happened this journey. And God didn't have to wait until I was old and grey-haired to come for me, but He came for me early enough to still have my strength to move around and to still do what I can do. So yeah, it's been An incredible journey so far.
Very, very, very amazing. What God does is to take us through journeys, series of events, to solidify your conviction, to make sure you love Him more, to love people. I remember one time I was praying, Lord, I want to love like you loved every person that was annoying to me. I want to be a friend. I want to be close with you. And I'm like, Lord, what is this? It's like you said you wanted to love like me. It includes loving the people that you do not like. So very, very powerful. What is God teaching you right now?
What is God teaching me right now? God is teaching me through Judges 16 verse 4. It's a very interesting portion of scripture. Because it says, and Samson loved, and he loved a woman from the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. I was sharing this to a couple of guys, and it was phenomenal because that story, in fact, God is teaching me to be careful of the Delilahs of what you love. And it has nothing to do with a woman. It could be whatever takes your heart, whatever takes attention from him. If you notice Samson, if you read the Bible very carefully, you see that Samson always dwelt at the top of the mountain. But Delilah was described to live in the valley of Sorrow. So you could see the dichotomy. The man who lived on the mountain was she lived in the valley. And so the mountain those times referred to where man went to meet God. Right? And so the man who was so great had to go down to the valley to find something that had his heart. And it was phenomenal because Delilah was the only person that the Bible ever said Samson never loved. All the other women that he met, we never told that he loved them, but Delilah was one person that he loved. And a great man like that fell to the lapse of Delilah. And the first thing that ever happened to Samson was that when he was caught, his eyes were blocked out. That means his vision, he lost his vision. And so when a man keeps playing with the Delilahs, the first thing that happens, they lose their vision. And the worst thing that can happen to a man is to live without a vision. When you live without a vision, waking up becomes a chore. It no longer, there's nothing to, because it's something about us men that wants something to look forward to. So that sense of desiring something, going after something, makes living worth it, makes it exciting. So he lost his vision, and the next thing that happened to that, he began to do menial things. He was called to do mighty things, but he was doing menial things because he began to start grinding nails. The Philistines and all that. That's what happens to a man. He plays too long with his life that he begins to lose self-awareness, and he begins to do menial things and just things that makes him lose respect for himself. So what that meant was that, let the Lord become the source of your affection. Let him become all that is. If something else takes your attention, it's going to take you down this path of Samson, losing your vision, and doing menial things we are called to do. So it was a call to sacrifice with Delilahs and let the Lord take the place of love. Let him become the first place and the only place, and let every other thing become an offshoot of that love. So I'm reading the book of Ruth as well right now. I just reading the book of Ruth. I learned phenomenal things about character and virtue. So it's mostly things bordering on character, setting boundaries, because freedom without restraint is bondage in disguise. If you're a person without boundaries, you soon find yourself being bound. It's important for, especially if you're a man, you must have boundaries. You must set up boundaries, strict boundaries, to protect you from the possibility of falling off the cliff. So that's one thing I'm learning. I'm learning very, very sternly the importance of making sure that you sacrifice your lives upon the altar of your affection for God, and let God become always. Let every other thing become more shit of Him. Only then can you keep yourself safe and keep your vision alive and clear, and then keep yourself doing mighty things. Because they that do their God, they shall be strong, they shall do exploits. So strength is a product of doing what God is. So if you're going to do mighty things, it's going to be an offshoot of your knowing God. So when I'm feeling weak, it must mean that I'm actually not growing in knowledge of who God is. So weakness sometimes actually be a sign of not growing in knowledge of who God is. So because strength must actually become the offshoot and consequence of growing in knowledge of who God is. So that's what I'm getting to learn. This season. I'm still learning. I'm still studying around like that.
I feel like starting to study Georges right now. It's really, 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 really fantastic. Finally, I know you're a busy man. Um, I know you are everywhere. I know you are everywhere. How to get hold of you was like, I was like, Father, catch him, catch him, catch him, catch him. How do you how how do you no, that wouldn't be the right question. What are the spiritual exercises you engage to keep your spiritual life alive?
Mm. I think the number one has been maintaining a consistent structure of devotion. Uh, having my own personal time set up for when I have to pray and when I have to study. Uh, it's not, to be honest, I've not been fully consistent every single day because sometimes stuff sitting like, oh, you understand? But one thing I'm learning is that the structure of devotion, of consistent devotion, protects you. Will also arm you for the days that you don't expect. You don't have to wait until you get back before you can actually arm yourself. You should train yourself before. And so having a daily structure, having a time of prayer. When Bible saying that the apostles had a time of prayer, they went at the hour of prayer. So so having that time of prayer, personally for me, I have the same time in the morning, and I must show up. So whether I'm tired or I'm busy, so I don't go and lay down. I just lay down and just sleep off. To be honest, sometimes, but just doing my hour of prayer. Let me be honest. God, I like. Like, God, you see me, I want to pray. Oh, you see my heart. But also of the word as well, studying the word, reading the word as well. It has really protected me from excesses because, as a person like myself who's a thinker, I'm always curious all the time. In a way, studying the word has, in a way, given me regulated my thinking. In a way, has helped me to be to not become extreme in my life, to go out of board, to go way overboard, but to stay within the confines of what's right. So, so I think a structure of devotion is something that we must that has helped me a whole lot. Having times when I must pray, irrespective of how I feel or what I may have done or have to do, or no matter how busy the world is, my phone might be off or might be on silent, and at that moment it's just for me. Then my study time as well. My study time on the plan reading Bible again this year. So I just really going to. So I'm going to go Samuel now, first Samuel, to just start reading. And then sometimes I don't necessarily get Rema. I just read. It's not until I get revelation, but I just read. I just keep on reading. Hopefully, some of them make sense, and some don't make any sense at all. But I keep reading, like the book of Leviticus. Oh my word, that book! I slept up many times, man. When I read that book. And numbers too. At the point I had to put numbers on audio Bible playing it in my car when I'm driving. So because I've been reading and the Sons of Zelophehad and this one. Oh my word! Even the names I can't. I had to even have the person reading it to pronounce the names for me to kind of okay, that's what you should have done. Got me reading it no. But that helped me through the book of Leviticus, Numbers. But I read other ones. Okay, but I want to read it. So just having that, like I'm on Samuel now, so first I listen on Samuel like that, take it like that when I get to the end. So yeah, instead of doing like we say, oh, hold Bible like this, Father show what I'm doing, and you now put like this, and then put your hand there, and to show you if you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. That's it. That's the one that's enough for you.
Yeah, wow. And interesting enough, I'm studying the book of First Samuel, so I think
Right.
you are in the spirit.
Exactly.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think I would always say this. Every time I record like this, I am first of all very, very blessed sharing, hearing what God has done or what God is doing. For me, I can never get over it. I can never get over it. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing your story. And believe it or not, whether you like it or yes, every season I will be inviting you. So if you like, go to Ghana. If you like, wherever you want to go, I'll tie your legs like this. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, guys. For me, this has been a very wonderful and fantastic session with the man himself, Paul Cast. Hey, guys, look out for this young man. Look out for this young man. Just to digress a bit, I think after I had the conversation the first time we met, I don't know, something in me just clicked with you, and I'm like, at that point where I was, I'm like, I don't want to know anybody again. Like I am, because a lot of people had hurt me so badly and all of that. But then, when those promptings come, I don't own my life. I don't own it. But when the Lord is leading like that, so I beg, carry me along, sir. Carry me. I'll hold your leg like, is it Esau or Jacob? Any one of them that held the legs. Okay, Jacob held. I'll hold your leg like this. Where you go,
I'm
go.
not Jacob too.
All right, guys. I hope you had a wonderful time listening to his story, and feel free to reach out to him on any of his socials: Instagram, Facebook. I think everywhere. Paulcast, and you'd be glad. So thank you everybody for watching. We look forward to the next episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. See you next time, and we say bye-bye.